Hey everyone, Adam the Ninja Nerd here, or the Otaku Ninja as I like to call myself. Just a pet name that I like to take to myself. Well, not a pet name, but a nickname. Anyway, I digress. My first ever anime review, and probably the review of one of my most favorite series, which is I deem probably the best series of all time, Deathnote. Now, some of you probably have a number one anime out there, whether it be Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Trigun, Full Metal Alchemist, Bleach, Naruto, whatever you want. For me, it was Deathnote. I'm not sure what it was, but it resonated within me of its psychological cat and mouse between two of my most favorite anime characters that I enjoy the most, Light Yagami and Detective L. Wally. Now, some of you who haven't seen Deathnote, the plot centers around a bored genius, Light Yagami, as I stated, where he's fed up with the justice system and criminals are not getting the punishment that they deserve. Some are getting off light, like just a slap on the wrist. And he's tired of it. And one day he stumbles across a little black notebook called the Deathnote. And upon reading it, he discovers the first rule of it is, the human whose name is written in this notebook shall die. He completely writes it off as just a prank, but after taking it home and experimenting with it, writing down a random criminal's name, he finds out that it actually works. And soon, he decides to take matters into his own hands by exterminating all the worst criminals in the world, cleaning up crime on every single part of the planet, until he's visited by a death god, the Shinigami Ryuk. And he vows that to become the god of the new world, which also draws the attention of the world-class detective L, who consider these acts as vicious murders. They may be criminals, but murder is still murder. And soon ensues a psychological game of cat and mouse, both characters while trying to take down each other without knowing their true identities. And that's just what really resonated with me. The series was introduced to me by a good friend of mine back in high school, and it's become probably one of my most favorite series of all time. I've read every single manga copy, all volumes 1 to 13, all great, a compelling read. I've seen the anime series, and it has spawned at least a pretty decent bunch of live-action properties, and one live-action drama, which was made in Japan, and one Netflix adaptation, which I'll get into that in a little bit, and a rumored big Hollywood budget, supposedly starring Zac Efron as the titular character Light Yagami, which I'll get into that later. Now you're wondering, why is this number one to me? I'm not sure what it is that makes it number one to me, but I just really enjoy it. I consider it probably my most favorite anime of all time. I'm not saying that it far surpasses every other anime. No, because I probably consider some other anime that better than that. But Death Note will always and will be my most favorite anime series of all time. Now, favorite characters-wise, of course, it's Light Yagami and L. Lolliot. There was a point in my high school days I would actually sit like L in the lunchroom. Yes, I would sit like L. If you have not seen L's signature pose, look it up. He sits very strange, but I like the way he sits. And someone actually asked me, why are you sitting like that? And I just gave him the classic L response. But that's a story for another time. Now you're probably wondering, the series has spawned at least 26 episodes, as I believe. Now, some anime series nowadays, some really good series, are only 12 or 13 episodes, which sucks. And some are still ongoing, i.e. One Piece. But that's a review for another time. If I ever review One Piece, probably have a lot to cover with that, Jim. And there are parts of the Death Note series that I really enjoyed the most, and some parts of it I could do without. The manga and anime themselves sync up perfectly with each other, and probably the biggest debate of them all is the classic sub versus dub debate. Now, a lot of you people, a lot of us fans out there, some say I prefer the subs over the dubs, I like the dub over the sub, Japanese sub with English subtitles, or the English dub. Now, the problem with that is that some people say they can like both, and it'll probably get you alienated into a lot of fan clubs. But a debate for another time before I drone on with that one. It's, yeah, with Death Note, I enjoyed both iterations with the Japanese dub and the English dub. The English dub was done by Viz Media, and they do a phenomenal casting job with that. Now, some anime dubs can be good with the amount of work you put into them. Sorry, Ned. And it all depends on the work they do. Some dubs come out really good, and some just come out completely terrible. Another topic that I'll probably do sometime if I ever get to it. Anyway, the series itself, Light and L were voiced, the English dubs are by Brad Swaley, who I long to meet if he ever comes to a convention sometime, or if he goes back in the convention circuit. If any of you have met the English dub of Light, Brad Swaley, please tell me what you think of him. He's really cool. I've only seen like YouTube videos of people meeting him. And the voice of L, the talented Alessandro Giuliani, which I'm not sure a lot about his work, but I know that he voiced Vakama in the Bionicle movies. If you haven't seen the Bionicle movies, go and watch them. They're awesome. Anyway, besides from the two main characters, some other characters that were really cool. One of my favorite girls in anime, Misa Amane. Now, a lot of you will peg Misa as like an annoying character or the comedic, and probably a lot of people will see her as probably one of the most annoying girls in anime. Well, far from it. As Misa is actually very smart. She's not like a ditzy blonde or anything, but she's just a little scatterbrained, but her heart's in the right place. Like, if you have somebody as loyal as Misa, she will love you for eternity. Now, as of course, Light doesn't really look at her like that. He just sees her as a means to an end, like the Joker and Harley Quinn. Again, another topic I'll cover later. Later sometime if I ever do anything like that. Now, Misa is voiced by the awesome Shannon Chan Kent. I'm not really sure on her voice work. I may have heard her in some other series. I can't really recall. But I'll get back to on that one if I do a top 10 most favorite voice actresses. And she also is a Death Note wielder, just like Light. But only with a certain edge over Light, she possesses the eyes of the Shinigami, which allows her to see the names and lifespans of other people in the world. The biggest catch is you can only see the names of those who... You can only see the names, but not the lifespans of those who are holding the Death Note. Now, to those of you who haven't seen Death Note, I highly recommend watching this series. It's probably a really great, compelling series. And you're probably thinking, like, is there anything else that Death Note has? Well, it has actually 2 animated features, which cover the series completely, just a little bit edited, or some were added in. There are some parts of it where they didn't really happen in the manga. They were made specifically for the films. There was Relight Visions of a God, which is the entire first part of the series retold from Ryuk's point of view, and L's successors, which tells about L's potential successors from the Whammy's house, Nier and Mello. And also that second part of the Death Note series, after L is replaced, I won't go into further details unless you watch the series, so no spoilers about that, is Nier and Mello, who are highly, well, let's say some people prefer Mello over Nier, because they say Nier will never stack up to L, and I agree with that completely. Death Note has also spawned at least 4 live-action films. Yes, 4 live-action films. There was the 2 main ones that were made in Japan, directed by Shusuke Kaneko, who's also famous for directing some of the New Millennium Godzilla films, was Death Note and Death Note 2, The Last Name, where some parts of it is a little edited around. Light's not in high school in this version. He's actually in college studying law. he has a girlfriend, and he's portrayed by Japanese actor Tatsuya Fujiwara. And he's a bit more cool, calm, and collected than Light is in the anime. And which tells the first part of the series where he has to elude some of the police and the FBI agents tailing him, which leads into his big meeting of L, which soon cuts to the credits. L is also portrayed by Japanese actor Kenichi Matsuyama, which, fun fact, he voices one of the Shinigami in the anime. He voices the Shinigami Jealous, but only in a flashback. We don't really hear from him after that. And both do phenomenal jobs portraying these characters, which leads into Deathnote 2, The Last Name, which picks up the next certain part of the series where it shows the second Kira. Kira is, of course, the alias of Light's being for killing all these criminals. The English word killer translated into Japanese Kira. Killer, Kira. If you want a Japanese lesson, it'll probably bore you to death. Anyway, Misa becomes the second Kira, which she's able to see names and lifespans of other people just by looking at them. And that causes a mass riot within Japan. Now, fun fact, in the movie, she announces herself as the second Kira, but in the anime and manga, she calls herself Kira, which makes Elle believe that this Kira is not the Kira we're dealing with. And also dealing with some of the aspects that her ways of killing are different than what Light's ways of killing are. And of course, the anime and the movies are, you can look at these and make side-by-side comparisons of what is in this, what's in the movie from the anime, and what's not into it. And I won't go into further spoilers unless I do a full depth review on these movies. The next came after Deathnote 2, The Last Name. The third movie was called Elle Changed the World, which also has a very excellent book. And it shows the last 23 days of Elle. Now, spoiler at this one, if you don't want to hear the spoiler of this, and those who haven't seen Deathnote, you can skip ahead to this. Or if you want to stay and listen, just in case you want to prepare yourself for what you're about to see. In the original anime and manga, Elle comes close to solving and finding out Kira's identity when all of a sudden he loses, he dies. But in the movies, he deduces that Light is Kira already and makes a sacrifice of himself. One of the rules in the Deathnote that you can only write one person's name one time. If you try to write it again, it doesn't work. Elle wrote down specific instructions. He'll die of heart failure 23 days later. Light tried to get his name written down in the Deathnote, but it didn't work. In which case, Elle won. We didn't need Near and Mellow in the movies. And of course, Elle Changed the World. It tells of Elle going beyond himself and trying to rid the world of a mysterious virus that's trying to be spread by another one of his former allies from the Whammy House, who goes by the codename K. If you haven't seen Elle Change the World, I highly recommend it. A lot of you mega fans, along myself as Deathnote fans, probably don't like the Japanese films, but I do. They're really entertaining. Then we have the live-action Japanese drama, which I didn't even know they made one until when I finally got my Crunchyroll account, and I was just scrolling through live-action drama to see what I can find. I actually found that there was a version of Deathnote, and this one was really entertaining. And, of course, some aspects are changed around. If you haven't checked out the live-action drama, I highly recommend if you go on to Crunchyroll. Probably one of the best sites to stream anime, or you probably have other ones like High Dive or anything like that. Then, of course, we have the Netflix adaptation of the series. A lot of people tend to take it or leave it as it is, but when I first saw it, it was a really good attempt. I thought, in my opinion, was a good attempt to try and adapt a series for American audiences. Yeah, there are things we could do without, and if you look at how Light reacts upon meeting Ryuk for the first time, in the anime version, he just simply shouts and falls back. In the Netflix edition, he screams like a girl. I couldn't even take that seriously. He screams like a freaking girl. But before I drone on with that, Ryuk in the Netflix adaptation is actually really cool, and he's played by Willem Dafoe, probably the best choice, and probably the best thing about that film. Now, it does take some similarities with the original adaptation, and it's, even though it's taking place in America, there are killings all over the world, and people in Japan are calling him Kira, but they hardly use that term in America. And the version of L, the new actor who plays L, is very well into his role, and I really respect that. But the few things I didn't like about L being portrayed in this one is like he did things that L wouldn't do. He lost his cool. He resorted to using violence and even threatening Light, which L would never do. L will try to outsmart him or probably use other people in order to do it. And Light in this one, he's a high school kid, he's smart, and, well, if you take the movie for what it is, it's popcorn entertainment. The Netflix adaptation of Deathnote, for me, myself, it's a good attempt, but, you can take it for what it is. As I said, popcorn entertainment. Then the big rumored, big Hollywood budget Deathnote film that's supposedly in the works. This was announced way back when Deathnote was at the height of its popularity. It was back around 2009, 2010, I believe, where it was rumored that Zac Efron was going to play Light Yagami. And I didn't really believe that at the time, because we all know what Zac Efron's famous for, High School Musical. And I didn't really peg him as an anime fan, but upon seeing, it was a top 10 famous celebrities who are anime fans from Anime America. Highly recommend checking out Anime America. Those guys are awesome. They do awesome top 10 lists. Zac Efron's an anime fan. I didn't really realize that. And, like, you can't really, don't judge a person by their cover. Don't really judge a book by its cover, I mean. And he loves the Deathnote series, and it was rumored that Warner Brothers was going to pick it up and make a big adaptation of it, and possibly two choices for L was Cillian Murphy, who, as I recall, playing Scarecrow in Chris Nolan's Batman franchise and Batman Begins, where he played Scarecrow, or possibly Robert Pattinson, who, as we know nowadays, is probably going to be the new Batman, and for a lot of us who remember, he was Edward in Twilight, as we try to forget about that, but I remember him as Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter. Hufflepuff for life, yo. But a story for that for another time. So, there hasn't been really talk of that one lately. We haven't really seen much of that. Are they going to do it? And will it ever see the light of day? I don't know. But so far as we know, Deathnote, for me, has cemented itself as possibly one of my most favorite anime series of all time. I've collected pretty much every merchandise I can get on it. I own 2 Deathnote books. I've cosplayed both as Light and L. And I've seen some amazing artwork. I've seen some amazing theories. Like in Deathnote Relight Visions of a God, there's like a Shinigami talking to Ryuk, and some say that it's Light reincarnated as a Shinigami. And one particular video that I saw is, could Batman solve the Kira case? Now that, I think, would be really cool. And of course, a big fan debate for those of you who are familiar with the internet series Death Battle, Lelouch versus Light. Like, Lelouch and his Black Knights going against Light as Kira. Like, could Light deduce that Lelouch is Zero, and could Zero find out the identity of Kira? Who knows? Who knows? That could be a fight worth seeing. I don't know. So that's my complete review of Deathnote. I highly recommend it. A solid 10 out of 10 Both iterations are amazing. If you haven't seen Death Note, I highly recommend you check out the series. Start with the manga, then start with the anime. And if you're curious, check out the live action films too. They're worth a watch. And if you all have a Crunchyroll account, or if you have friends who have Crunchyroll, to check out the live action drama series, and you can make side-by-side comparisons with these series. And so again, thank you all for watching. If you have any anime recommendations or any anime series that you like for me to review, I'd be more than happy to. I've seen a lot of anime over there, so if you have one for me, I've probably already seen it. Till then, this is Adam the Ninja Nerd, the Otaku Ninja. Later.